readers, thank you for tuning in to an HD Reads review. My name's Haley Dean, and today we're going to be reviewing, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. So this is a young adult fantasy novel, which is perfect because that is my genre. I'm going to read the summary of it first so you get a general idea what it's about, and then I'm going to go right into my critiques and my praises because I have read this and I do have a few thoughts. First of all, though, let me show you. Okay. So here's the cover, and the video is not going to do it justice. I can see that right now. But this cover is actually beautiful. There is a very sparkly blue sun that's right in the middle. The script is gorgeous. There's some red lines going around that fits with the main character. It's a gorgeous cover. And they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I like shiny things, so I bought this. And I do have the sequel to it, and the sequel is even more beautiful on the outside. I haven't read that one yet, though, so I don't know how it is on the inside yet. So we're just going to talk about this one for today. Alright, so first I'm going to go ahead and go over the summary. Scarlet Dragna has never left the tiny island where she and her sister, Tella, live with their powerful and cruel father. Period. I don't know why I kind of trailed off there. Now Scarlet's father has arranged a marriage for her, and Scarlet thinks her dreams of seeing Caraval, the faraway once-a-year performance where the audience participates in the show, are over. But this year, Scarlet's long-dreamt-of invitation finally arrives. With the help of a mysterious sailor, Tella whisks Scarlet away to the show. Only, as soon as they arrive, Tella is kidnapped by Caraval's mastermind organizer, Legend. It turns out that this season of Caraval revolves around Tella, and whoever finds her first is the winner. Scarlet has been told that everything that happens during Caraval is only an elaborate performance, but she nevertheless becomes enmeshed in a game of love, heartbreak, and magic with the other players in the game. And whether Caraval is real or not, she must find Tella before the 5 nights of the game are over. A dangerous domino effect of consequences is set off, and her sister disappears forever. Welcome, welcome to Caraval. Beware of getting swept too far away. Alright, so now you kind of get an idea of what this book is about. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into my critiques and my praises. And I do like to end on a good note, so I'm going to go critique, praise, critique, praise, critique, praise. So critique number 1. I'm going to call this one, Don't Hold My Hand. So as you can see, this is a good sized book, right? It's a little bit smaller than the 4th Harry Potter book, though that's not saying much because the 4th Harry Potter book is huge. This is still a good size. And unfortunately, the reason why it's a good size is because there's a lot of very meaty paragraphs that don't need to be in there. What I mean is that the author has a tendency to go into depth when she didn't need to. There's a lot of paragraphs about what the main character's feeling, why she's feeling it, what she's going to do about those feelings, what she thinks she should probably do about those feelings, the actions she's going to take, the actions she's doing, so on and so forth. A lot of these paragraphs just could have gotten cut down to a few sentences and they would have been more effective, at least in my opinion. I understand it, you, as a writer, because I'm a writer too, and I get this, you don't want your readers to get lost. You don't want them to come up to a wrong conclusion or a wrong dead end, a wrong turn, whatever, because you want to make sure they understand what you're writing. But at the same time, you have to learn to trust your readers. They're smart enough to read the book. They should be smart enough to figure it out. And if they come up to a totally different interpretation, fine. That is the point of literature. I mean, do you remember the last time you were in an English class and the teacher asked you why the curtains in a novel were blue, and all you want to tell them is that they're blue because the author made them blue and not because of some deep reason? But it probably was a deep reason, and your English teacher was probably right. Interpretation is a very important part when it comes to the reading process, and unfortunately this author took that chance away from her readers. And I'll go ahead and put an example here. I have the page marked with my pretty feathery bookmark. Scarlet shouldn't have been surprised. Her sister had always been wilder. Tella liked the taste of trouble, but it wasn't the wildness that hurt Scarlet. Tella was the most important person in the world to Scarlet, but it always broke Scarlet to know her sister did not feel the same way. That's a lot, right? I mean, okay, it's a good amount. It kind of goes into a little too much. But, okay, it's good. But let me read you the paragraph that comes before that one. All this time, she, Scarlet, had been worried about Tella, but obviously her sister had not been concerned about her. She probably hadn't even thought about her, not when she had a young man in her bed. So, my point is that, that paragraph was all about how her sister had been missing and Scarlet finally found her, and her sister was with a guy. And Scarlet felt, of course, upset because her sister didn't seem to care that Scarlet was so worried. But it goes in repetitive, like talking again and again and again about why Scarlet is upset. Oh, my sister didn't care that I was worried about her. My sister doesn't care about me. My sister doesn't care about me. And it's like that first paragraph would have been effective enough, but you followed it up with another one that basically restates it. And unfortunately, there's a third one that I just don't feel like reading. But it goes right after that again explains how her sister just doesn't care. That's a recurring thing throughout the novel. The author puts a powerful first sentence in a powerful paragraph that says, like, this is what this person's going on, like, what's going on in their life. But then repeats it again in slightly different sentences, almost trying to, like, beat you over the head with it. This is what the character's feeling. I know. That first paragraph was powerful. It was fine on its own. You don't have to show me it again. That being said, if there's one thing that is still left up to interpretation, I'm going to find it. And what I've concluded is that, or my theory, and this might be disproven in the second book, but my theory is that the reason why the author constantly is repetitive and constantly holds your hand and takes away your interpretation is because of the main character, Scarlet. Scarlet is very anxious. She is nervous. She overthinks things. That's her personality. And this book, the way it's written, is reflective of that character. So if the second book is totally different, because the second book takes place like focusing around the sister Tella, who is total polar opposite of Scarlet. If the second book's writing style is polar opposite of this one, where it doesn't hold your hand, then, alright, it's canon. But if it's just a consistent thing where it's constantly holding your hand even in the second book, then my theory still stands. And unfortunately, the author kind of, I guess, just doesn't trust the readers enough. And I just want to say, like, trust us. Like, you are telling a good story. Let us interpret it how we like. Like, you don't have to give us every little detail. It's okay. You know, it's like telling mom, like, it's okay, can I go now? Like, one last hug, alright, now let me go. Alright, so let me go ahead and go into my first praise. And I'm going to say this one, it's called Colors Everywhere. I could have probably figured out a different title, but one of the things that the author did very well on is the use of colors. The main character's name is Scarlet. That alone I love. I am a sucker when it comes to colorful names or names that are simple and maybe cliche, but they are still fantasy-like. In fact, one of the names I use often is the name Amethyst. It's a color, it's also a gem. Both worlds. So the author used colors very well, not just in the name of the main character, but in describing emotions. And I actually have two examples on this one. The first one is actually one of the first sentences of the novel, which says, Scarlet's feelings came out in colors even brighter than usual. The urgent red of burning coals, the eager green of new grass buds, the frenzied yellow of a flapping bird's feathers. He had finally ridden back. That is very effective. These are vibrant colors. These are colors that we understand, but they're not used in a traditional way. Like, usually green is used for jealousy, right? But this one, it's used for new grass buds, which has an entirely different feel for it, right? Urgent red, burning coals. I mean, it's not fire, it's not burning, it's not passionate, but it's coals. Like, it's warm and it's cooking, and you know something's about to start in a coal bed, but it's not there yet, but you're anticipating it. It's very well done. And the other example I have is actually from the same page I marked earlier. She felt 5 different shades of berry-colored foolish. That right there. Using colors and integrating them so almost poetically when it comes to emotions. The author did a great job of that. Honestly, I loved it. Like I said, poetic. And it goes with the main character. It goes with the cover of the book. It goes with the theme of the book with Caraval. There are always colors and movements and everything that go with it. The use of color in this novel is frankly stunning. So good job on that. Alright, so critique number 2. And I'm going to call this one Show Me Your World. So I mentioned that this is a good-sized novel, and I mentioned that the reason why is because there's a lot of fatty paragraphs that really didn't need to be there. In my opinion, those paragraphs could have been cut down and used for a better purpose. And it could have kept the same length. And what I mean by that is this is a fantasy novel, so it takes place in an entirely different world, right? And in that world, you have the main character, Scarlet, go to an island to participate in Caraval, which is those games and everything. And so the thing is that we only get one chapter of Scarlet in her reality, what is her regular everyday world, before she goes to Caraval. And that one chapter of her and her world really wasn't enough to me. We hardly get anything. Yes, we're introduced to the main characters, and we're introduced to the personalities of the main characters, but we aren't introduced to what her reality is. And honestly, I almost feel like if we had given more of her reality, Caraval would have been even more magnificent. Because we really could have seen like what is normal to her, so we could have compared it to what is abnormal in Caraval. I feel like if we had been given something like her religion, her culture, her traditions, her holidays, anything, you know, we're teased a very little bit about the history of their world, and we're teased a little bit about her father and what his occupation is, but that's about it. And the fact that we're only given one chapter of them in their real world before they get to Caraval, and they're in Caraval for the rest of the novel, I almost feel like it just wasn't enough. Like, I didn't get a long enough trip. You know, you didn't take me on that journey for more than a minute. You know, I have a 5-day vacation, but I only got to visit this place for half a day. Not enough. You don't get to experience it enough. So, I feel like that could have been done better. And I get it, that's not the point of the book. The point is it takes place in Caraval. But the thing is that I did read the summary of the sequel, and the sequel seems to focus a little bit more of what their reality is before going back into Caraval. And I almost feel like, you know, that would have been, I guess, more, it would have had more weight to me if we saw more of their reality in the first book. You know, like I said, cut those fatty paragraphs down and replace them with world building, and it would have been fine. So yeah, there's my second critique right there. Okay, so my second praise. I'm gonna go ahead and say and reiterate with my second critique and build off of that and say my second praise is Magical Wonderland. So though their reality isn't developed to my standards, or at least just to my personal opinion, to me, Caraval is very well developed. It's very magical. It's, like I said, it's Hunger Games, but take away the violence and add a dash of whimsy into it. And not just any whimsy, Alice in Wonderland whimsy, you know? It's magical and it's beautiful and it's intriguing. There are some unique things that you kind of have to wrap your head around a few times before you get it. And even then, you just want to be like, well, I just want to experience this. And it's almost like you're seeing the main character and she kind of notices a few, like, she's walking past shops and everything and she takes note of some interesting little, like wares and everything that they're selling. But she doesn't buy any of it, and I'm almost yelling at her like, no, go back, let me see that. Like, it's like going to Harry Potter's Diagon Alley, and Harry just goes straight to the bookshop. And I'm like, okay, books are awesome, I love books, they're my passion, but go back to the cool stuff that lets you do other stuff. Like, I can read, I can do that in my real world, go back to the stuff that I can't do, Caraval is, very magical. There are a lot of interesting things. There's fortune tellers, there's palm readers, there's people who apparently can look into your eyes and they can see like your deepest desire. There's like dresses that change color based on emotion, which of course again fits with the character and fits with my first praise. And the use of currency in Caraval is interesting too. You don't pay with actual money, you pay with secrets, you pay with confessions. The vendor will, in order for payment, the vendor will say, like, you need to tell me what's your biggest fear. What's the last lie you ever told, and that's how you pay for things, which I think is an interesting dynamic right there. Caraval is very magical, and I would love to visit it. Honestly, I am almost upset that the main character, was so focused on finding her sister that she didn't get to enjoy Caraval. Not because I felt bad for her, but because I am like, wait, I want to see more Caraval. Like, I want to participate in more of this game. So yeah, no, that is my second praise for sure. Caraval is fascinating. It is beautifully done. All right. Let's do this. My third and final critique is the one that really peeved me the most. This is the critique that I'm going to call the Disney princess model.
Have you ever had true love's kiss?
Ew, bars!
Do you have daddy issues?
I don't even have a mom.
Neither do we! And now for the $1 million question. Do people assume all your problems got solved because a big, strong man showed up?
Yes! What is up with that?
She is a princess!
So, book aside for a minute. Let's think about all those classic Disney princesses. Got them on your head? Now, kind of think of like what those have in common, right? They all have some things in common. They all seem to fit in some criteria that more or less is not extremely feminist, Like, these are criteria you never see Disney princes fall in, but princesses, oh yeah, they're funny. So, here's my list of the Disney princess model, like the criteria that I see almost all the Disney princesses falling in, or at least they fall into at least two of the categories or more. So, number one, the princess is missing one or more parents. Number two, the princess has a step-parent. Number three, the princess is betrothed against her will. Number four, the princess is unsatisfied with her home life. Number five, the princess runs away from home. Number six, the princess falls in love with a Prince Charming in a matter of days or less. And number seven, that Prince Charming is morally gray and is probably not actually a good guy. So that's my my overall breakdown of the Disney princesses. Clearly, they don't all fall into that category, but they at least fall into some. And the thing is that this main character, Scarlet, she's a Disney princess, unfortunately. She is missing parent. She doesn't have a step-parent. So that's one point against her. She's missing a parent. She is betrothed against her will. She is unsatisfied with her own life. She does kind of run away from home. I'll give her half a point on that. She does meet and fall in love with a Prince Charming in a matter of days. And it is very specific on how many days it takes place in this book, so you can't just, say, oh, that's interpretation. No, there's nothing to be interpreted, remember? And she, the Prince Charming is morally gray. So overall, that's 6 out of 7? Did I count that right? I don't know if I did. But she does fall into lots of those categories. And not all of them are horrible, The fact that she's missing a parent or whatever, that can be dynamic. But the ones that annoy me the most are the last 2. The one where she meets a Prince Charming and falls in love with him in a matter of days. And the one where the Prince Charming is morally gray. So, the whole thing is, this was written in 2017, or published in 2017. And we've kind of slowly gotten away with the whole idea of a girl falling in love with a guy in a matter of days, because that's always how it is, right? And we've kind of taken away from it. I mean, even Frozen was made a point on that.
Fine. You can't marry a man you just met.
You can if it's true love.
Anna, what do you know about true love?
It really upsets me that a book written so recently dives into the Disney princess model. It's one of those if you're gonna do the Disney princess model, turn it on its head. Make it about a guy who falls in love with a girl, and the guy fits all the Disney princess models. Or make it to where the girl, the Disney princess, is actually lesbian. Make it where the guy is the Disney princess and he's gay. Change it. Flip it around. Make it unique. Don't rehash the same story that I grew up with that I've honestly gotten sick of by now. As much as I love those classic Disney movies, those are the things that I really can't forgive them for doing. Disney princess models can be pretty harmful when it comes to young women. It makes them think that, there must be something wrong with them if they can't fall in love with a guy within a certain amount of time. It makes them have high expectations for guys, or unique expectations for guys, that honestly can be damaging to them. We kind of need to encourage it. And the fact that this main character, she falls in love with this guy in a matter of days. He is morally gray. You could argue against me if you want. There is something that happens at the end that kind of shows how morally gray he is. And I'm not going to spoil it, but if you read the book, you would understand. And the other thing that's recurring is the main character, she's constantly struggling with this whole thing that she's looking for her sister. And she's with this guy, and she's starting to fall in love with him. And he starts becoming more of a priority to her than her sister is. She's still looking for her sister, but it seems to be that she seems to care about this guy equivalently. I hate that word. So he seems to take just as much attention to her as her sister does. And one, that's unrealistic. It really is. You don't feel that way about a guy in a matter of days. You could argue with me if you're romantic, saying love at first sight or whatever, but don't tell me that a sister that you are so protective of for years, have been like a mother to, is somehow on the same par level as a guy that you met a few days ago. That's not love at first sight, that's lust. And it's repeated over and over again how handsome he is. Don't give me that. Don't feed me that. Don't feed young girls that, because you shouldn't fall in love with a guy so quickly that he somehow becomes more important to you than your sister. In fact, that's one of the things that Scarlett was getting upset about when she found Tella and Tella was with a guy. She was upset because Tella seemed to care more about a guy than she did Scarlet. Well, then, by the end of the book, she's doing the exact same thing. You know, and she feels guilty about it, which is good. I mean, that's dynamic. But it doesn't forgive it. You know, feeling guilty doesn't mean you're automatically forgiven. It just means that you're recognizing what you did wrong. That's one of my biggest critiques when it comes to this book. But that aside, let me go ahead and go to my final praise. And actually, this would have been my second praise. But there's just something about it that I thought was just so well established that I had to make my third and my final praise. Like, the thing that I love most about this book, and yes, Caraval's magic is a big thing for me. But interestingly enough, to me, the thing that was the most well developed and the most well done was Scarlet's relationship and her fear of her father. Scarlet's father is very abusive, not just physically, but manipulative, in a unique way that's shown very early on in the first chapter. And throughout the rest of the book, Scarlet's father doesn't come back until towards the end. But she's constantly in fear of her father, even when he's not there. She's constantly worried, like, you know, is he going to find out about what I'm doing? Is he going to find out about where I am? Like, he would get so angry if I did this, or if he knew I was doing this, or whatever. Her fear of her father constantly comes back, even if he's not present. And in fact, it's so powerful that when he does show back up, I gave an audible gasp. I was actually, like, terrified. Like, oh my God, Scarlet, get out of there. Like, your dad's back. You know? Because you fear it. And Scarlet fears him. It's so well established. It really gets on you on a whole nother level. It's consistent. It makes sense with her character. Like I said, she's anxious, she's nervous, and she has good reason to be. Her dad has abused her for years. Has abused her and abused her sister. So it's very powerful, and the fact that he's the antagonist, I mean, that makes sense. Like, he's a present antagonist, shown up in the very beginning and not there throughout the entire book, whether actually there physically, or there just because of Scarlet's fear for him. It makes sense. It shows that when it comes to abuse, that stuff sticks with you, and it stays on your mind. And you need to find other ways to, I guess, heal from it. And that's sort of what Scarlet does. She does find other ways to heal from that abuse. And it's not totally healed by the end, which is realistic. You know, it's not going to be completely resolved. She is in fear of her father's abuse, and she doesn't necessarily stand up against it until the end, though she is, like, thought about it. It's realistic, it's powerful, it's so well done that I had to make it my highest critique. You know, originally my highest critique was how beautiful and magical the world is, the Caraval world is. So that says something. That her fear of her father is so powerful that somehow it is, to me, even better done than the entire world. You know, and that's not diminishing the Caraval world. That's raising up the bond, or rather the relationship that the author made between Scarlet and her father. It is wonderfully done. And that just goes to show, like, you know, you can love something that you hate. Scarlet's father is one of those characters that you love to hate. Like, you just hate him. You know, you want the main character to get away from him. In fact, you care more about the main character because of how horrible her father is. You're rooting for the main character because of the villain. So whatever points she lost when it came to her love interest in the Disney princess model, she gains in the absolutely realistic way her father and her interact. And how her anxiety interacts with her and how her anxiety plays on her. It's powerful and it's well done. I have to really give the author credit on this one. So, okay, there's my review of Caraval. There is 2 other books. I don't remember if the third one is out yet or if it's coming out soon as I'm making this video. I do plan on reading the sequel. And I'll probably do a review video on that too. Overall, I would probably give this book maybe a 3.5 out of 5. You know, it's good. It's decent. There are a few things that I have some problems with it, but there are other things that I love. So, you know, it gets a good review. I don't know what the second book's going to get yet. I'm hoping that it goes even higher than this. But I'd recommend this book. You know? Okay. Thank you for watching, guys. As always, please like and subscribe. I have an Instagram and a Twitter, HD Reads, and I do have a website, HaleyDean.com. Haley spelled weird, Haleigh. It's pronounced Haley, I promise. Alright, thanks guys.